Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. I am your host, Craig Fowler, and we're back once again on a Sunday. That's right, if you listened last weekend, you'll know that we split up the Scottish Premiership review into three parts because, well, there was game on a Monday night, which made things tricky for our usual Monday programming. But also as well, it's the start of the new campaign and there's plenty to talk about. We're just getting up to speed with new players, how the teams are lining up, how the managers are faring, etc., etc., etc. So it's not quite... It probably demands that either the Monday show be longer or that we just keep splitting it up when the bodies are available, that we can do this on not only a Monday, but on a Sunday as well. So this podcast will look back at the three games which took place on Saturday in the Premiership. That was Rangers Dundee, Motherwell against St Mirren, and Livingston Falkirk. And to help me talk through those matches, it's Tony Anderson. Tony, how's it going?
Oh, Craig, it's nice to see a friendly face. Just had a couple of big sleeps there after a torrid journey home from Serbia. So we're surviving. We're surviving. And I even had a nap yesterday. I was trying, because I was away last week, I was literally trying to watch the highlights from last week when I woke up yesterday. And then I fell asleep during half of them. Then luckily enough, woke up at 2:55 and got myself sorted so I could watch the game that we agreed on that I would watch at that time. So we're peeling myself back together. We're podcasting today. I'll go back down Easter Road and hopefully life can be back to normal by tomorrow.
Yes, because you were away in Serbia and Belgrade on Thursday for Hibs 2-0 victory away to Partizan. What was that like as an experience before we go on?
Well, wow. I'd say the on match day, it was really great. They had us, we all basically, you know what, it's like every trip's the same apart from the ground. You meet at a bar, everyone's there, everyone sings songs and drinks all day, then they go to the game, right? You know, like it could be anywhere in the world, the majority of the time. Normally an Irish bar, so we were at Gecko Irish Bar. So everyone was set up there. It wasn't a huge, there was only about 400 Hibs fans there, so, but we were all set this bit, and there was basically just a police presence there the entire day, but they were great. They didn't come over, they didn't bother talking to anyone. It was basically like them going, we'll make sure you stay safe, which is a nice thing, in an environment like that with that sort of reputation. If you like, and everyone done that. And then they had the buses put on for the game, no fucking around, go and get on that bus now. There's no like, well, I might stay in. No, you're not. You're going to get this bus now. And then we got off. So we're trying to get carry-outs. And then when you get off the bus, I'm like, right, I'm going to go to shop. I was thinking like, I'll just drink outside the stadium because they're taking the stadium over 2 hours before kickoff. No, you're not doing that either. You're going to give us everything that you have. Like people were having to give over like, you know, like proper vapes. You know, the vapes that you buy, just hand them over. £50 vapes. You're never seeing that again. Goodbye. Like proper searching at the stadium and march to the ground and then put inside for 2 hours. And then there's no alcohol at these matches. They didn't just switch the alcohol off because we were coming. They don't have alcohol at the stadium, but it was crazy because you go in and like the Serbian fans are pretty much already coming in. You know, it's not, they're also there about 2 hours before kickoff. I don't know if that's more a choice for them. And then it was just non-stop them singing. It was amazing looking over, standing on the little terracing bit that we are. There's like a huge sort of tenement block of flats directly behind like Eastern Bloc flats right behind the stadium with a huge full orange moon that was right down the back of it. So it looked absolutely incredible. And then they have all their banners and and they just don't stop for the 90 minutes, pretty much regardless of what's going on. Whereas we're all in 400 of us all getting hung over it and having to work extremely hard to try and keep the spirits up in terms of you're sort of like finding it all magnificent, look around, but remembering, I've got a part to play in terms of supporting the team and try to help them over the line in this extremely sort of hostile environment. And then it was amazing when the goals scored, and then they put a banner saying congratulations about 150th year and stuff, which is like a nice touch. But then when the second goal went in, the nice touches stopped and glass bottles started getting lobbed in, and people started going over to the fence and getting spat on in their face, and then it was starting to get really, really tasty. And then you could tell, we were kept in about an hour, and it must have been well over an hour. And then they had us all huddled down and everyone's worried, thinking that there's going to be fucking fans in the trees because it's like a gauntlet. It's like loads of stairs leading up to where the buses were, and it's all trees that are sounding. Like, are they just all waiting for us in there? Is that what we're waiting so long for? Like fucking the Raptors in The Lost World.
Don't go through the long grass. Don't go through the long grass.
And it was like, oh, so. And then we eventually got on the bus and then back into town. Everyone went for a couple of beers, had some food finally. I was on the 0% Heineken just to make it feel like I was doing something in the stadium as it was. People who'd been vaping for years, just having cigarettes, so they had something that you had to consume something at all times. And back in some food and a couple of beers, and then get ready for the massive journey home, because you're not getting back in. The game's not kicked off till 9 o'clock at night, so you weren't getting back in till 1 o'clock in the morning. So it was to see how that side of goes. One of the main reasons I wanted to go as well, because I was like, I don't know if I get the opportunity to see Hibs in that type of sort of environment before. So I really, really, really wanted to go, even though it was a really difficult trip to do, hard to get around in terms of like getting home is a fucking nightmare. Like that was bus, trains, automobiles, the lot. £200 taxis, 3 flights, all this stuff, man. It was an absolute nightmare. 18 hours it took. Stuck at a border for 3 hours, getting my actual bag searched from a flexi bus. So it was, it was quite the experience. It was absolutely great. And to win a game like that in that environment, it'll go down as one of my favourite games I think I'll ever go to in my entire life, because it's unwritten. It can't be replicated, even though the thing is we play Legia Warsaw, so it's the exact same type of game, the next one. The same time, mental fans, huge police presence, dangerous the whole time.
Eastern Europe.
Aye, so we'll see. Hopefully we get to that and maybe I can go somewhere like in Western Europe.
Get a bit of time to actually plan one as well.
Yeah, get a bit of time, because this is it's been tough going.
Right. Speaking of tough going, that's how Rangers found it on Saturday evening as they drew 1 each with Dundee. And talking about hostile atmospheres as well, the Ibrox crowd was not impressed with how their team performed in this one. Like I say, a 1-1 draw with James Tavernier, a 92nd minute penalty being required to...
Dodgy penalty
to earn a share of the spoils after Ryan Astley had given Dundee the lead not long into the second half. And let's be charitable and start with Dundee, shall we? Because a huge result for Steven Pressley. Like, I wrote in my column on Friday that because Presley spent the midweek saying, like, this is a process. It's going to need patience. We're still trying to get in like another 5 players, and we don't want to rush, because they didn't want another situation like just happened this summer, where there was so many guys who were out of contract at the same time, left the club. Either they're out of contract or their loans expired. So you had like 7 or 8 bodies. I mean, I think it was like 10 or 11 first team players in general who left, and like 7 or 8 guys who would be regular starters for Dundee last season all departed. So Preds is like, we don't want that. We need to take our time, because we want to sign these guys to 2 and 3 year deals. But you look at their fixture list, you look at how bad they were in their opening game against Hibs, and question marks on whether these guys that they actually are signing are good enough. So he's preaching all this. You're thinking, that's all well and good, but are you going to get the time? Because you're going to need to get results to get the time. If you lose all your games, like, you'll be out the door after 5 or 6 matches, regardless of how much you're trying to point towards a bigger picture. But this is a huge result in terms of trying to buy that time, trying to get the team, try to implement his ideas, try to bring in new players, try to strengthen them overall. And yeah, it's a huge result for Pressley.
And I'm quite impressed with what he said after, because before the game he was talking about how hard they'd worked on the training pitch to put a game plan together, etc., etc. But he didn't go into what I think some managers would have went more into self-preservation mode at this point, especially with the welcome he's had just in general. Like before he gets beat off teams like Airdrie, even before that, he's getting, hey, let's be frank, he's getting laughed at by wider Scottish football, and the Dundee fans are furious. And at the end of the game, he really downplayed the sort of tactical element of the match and talked about how all that does is help players, but he was heaping all the praise on the players about courage and aggression being the things that really make these things happen, which I think is a really smart way to play that. Because like I said, I think a lot of other managers would would go down another route when they're, because we see it all the time. Self-preservation has become huge in management. That's not even a criticism of managers all the time. It's almost been imposed upon them due to the environment that they all have to work in all the time. So I thought that was really great for him to put that together. And I was really impressed with that, like Wesley, what a massive difference he made to the team in terms of them being to build up the park. And in terms of a captain's performance, man, I mean, Clark Robertson was absolutely ridiculously good.
Yeah, he was. Clark Robertson was brilliant, and he was somebody that didn't really impress last season, and I think at points he looked quite... I mean, to be fair to him, he did have injury issues last year, missed a huge chunk of it. So if we're given, like... So for instance, like we've in the past given like passes to Kieran Bowie last season, who looked kind of better coming off the bench, and he was like, well, it's due to the fact of being injured all season, and you won't see the best of me until I've had a full preseason. Maybe that was the same with Clark Robertson, but I also wonder as well whether this type of match and the way that Pressley set out his side in the first two games in general maybe suits him a bit better, because he is a bit kind of bigger guy, maybe a bit cumbersome, and playing in that Tony Docherty style. Tony Docherty, not a bad manager, but somebody incapable of setting out a team that wasn't wide open defensively. And Robertson's maybe the type of player that needs it to be a bit more
compact,
yeah, and a bit more just kind of where he could play the game like he did on Saturday, where it was just kind of any time the ball came into the penalty area, he was getting rid of it.
And they were just so disciplined, every member of the team, and it wasn't like they didn't ride their luck at the start. You know, sometimes these games, it's like they ride their luck for half an hour, and then it's like they sort of build confidence from that, and then the team starts to look like they're being really well set up. I felt like they were like that for the word go. They completely slowed Rangers down. We'll come on to the lineup that Rangers chose that Russell Martin actually made comment on maybe affecting that. Like there was people like Dre Wright, thankless as fuck. He was just up down that right. He was basically playing right back for the entire 90 minutes, barely ever getting up the park, and he was doing lung busters so often to try and get back. And like you're saying, protect that back three. The midfield three, which obviously Finn Robertson, another one that not massively sure of, and then playing in that number 10, he's obviously looking to replace Lyle Cameron, who went away to Rangers, so you're not entirely sure about him. Digby, and then Jones, I thought was the standout in there. I thought he was really, really tidy. I thought he was really nice on the ball, and he was the one that sort of kept Dundee ticking over and actually relieved the strain sometimes, and was willing to take the ball in slightly tighter areas and turn. But Finn Robertson again, like Dre Wright, it was just, the guy must be knackered. He must be sleeping tight tonight, and he caused so many of the problems when he got up there. But at the same time, sometimes his final ball let him down, and he could have done better at points. So there's still a negative within that. But again, in terms of from Pressley's point of view, nobody can question that team was willing to give him absolutely everything. And then it's like, now we've got this two-way street. Is that a good thing? Is that what? Is it good that team might buy him a few months? I don't know. I don't know if it will be, because that might be, as you said, it might just be the perfect place for this type of performance that will suit the way that Pressley wants to play. Because he tried to do this against Hibs. He basically tried to play the exact same way against Hibs at home. So you've got to worry about, is this actually just Dundee's style rather than just the game plan they put across at Ibrox?
For what I remember him for his days at Falkirk, I'd be surprised if this is what he's wanting to play throughout the entire season. It's maybe just a case of the fact that, like he says, they're still to bring in 5 players. He maybe just doesn't trust the squad enough. It's maybe like kind of Davy Martindale and Livingston's season in the top flight prior to this one, where they were terrible to finish bottom, but all season long they were really, really, like, even by Livingston's standards, they were very kind of negative, very defensive. And it was due to the fact that Martindale didn't trust his defence at all. Really, did they just trust the team? So it was like, we're going to have to just try and grind out 0-0s and 1-0s all season long and give ourselves a chance. And maybe that's how Presley's looking at this team, looking at the squad is currently constructed, and thinking this is the best way for us at this point in time to stay competitive and to try and get some early points on the board before we can get in a few more bodies, if they can manage to do that by the end of the month.
Because it's a stinking start. They're playing 2 of the top 3 from last season, even if the people might comment that they are in Europe. But the last player, like I mentioned him briefly, at the end, Wesley, I thought, what a difference he made in terms of finally getting that, like keeping them up the park a bit and like not doing anything incredible, but just being able to play with his back to goal. And he tried to play sort of like quite neat passes to players. And they were actually trying to get Robertson around him to allow them to break out of the team. So he looks like he might actually be maybe a relatively tidy signing, even if it's just for that basic sort of role that we've seen in Scottish football so often, that a team, especially at the bottom half of the league, even if they're not like a huge goal scorer or extremely skillful or anything, that they can just help buy you time and to create sort of a little bit of havoc up there. And McCracken, a few people were commenting in my chat. My mate Chris was talking about like his distribution was brilliant on the day. He's spraying the ball, and we were laughing because I was like, he's actually already been in the Scotland squad, by the way. And it's like that's the least impressive thing you can say in international football in terms of that position now. But yeah, he was again when he was, rather than just always just lumping it, which must get really easy to do in that environment, he was trying to ping passes to give them a chance to get out to get up the park and to do something. And then Presley's he's obviously pinpointed that Rangers look weak for set pieces because he totally called them out. Every single one was like a nightmare for Rangers. And again, like set pieces are normally a thing that you do have to give the coaching team credit for when they go that well.
Yeah, that's certainly right. I forgot to mention that there was a red card in this game for Rangers. Rangers were reduced to 10 men after Dundee had taken the lead. And yeah, you're talking about maybe negatives of the Dundee performance, is the fact that they actually didn't kill the game off, because they did have opportunities on the counter-attack, a good few ones, and as you said, kind of constantly picking the wrong ball, picking the wrong pass.
We're dead on their feet at that point, though. That was a problem. So, like, Finn Robertson, you could see that he was sort of running in sand by that point, and it was easier for teams to go, because you saw that Rangers, even when they did it to 10 men, like, I think we might keep loads of guys forward anyway, which was probably the right decision.
Nasser Jigger sent off for bringing down Wesley for, like, it was one of those ones that it was kind of borne out by Dundee's kind of how they finished up some of the other opportunities on the counter attack. But it was like, when he was brought down, I was like, is that a red card? Oh, yeah, well, it definitely is a red card, but it's just because it's Dundee. I'm like, is it actually denying a clear and obvious goal scoring opportunity?
Yeah, because his legs don't get tangled, which is not what Giga wants to happen. If that goes on for an extra 5 seconds, Giga just goes round him and just takes the ball off him at the front. And then calmly strolls out of defence and then plays a ball wide. So yeah, but then obviously the other contentious decision, the red card wasn't contentious, I was just having a laugh at that. The contentious decision at the end with the penalty being given, Gassama goes down under the challenge of Dre Wright, and yeah, I think we all said it in the group chat, he buys it. Like, it's clever play. Like, he gets himself in front, and then he basically does the thing where he kind of hesitates a little bit, lets his legs get entangled in the legs of the opponent, and Dre Wright's just basically running, doesn't really do it, doesn't even try to challenge him, he's just trying to keep pace with him in the penalty box, but it ends up being a penalty, and it's one of those, there is that much kind of contact going on, it looks all clumsy, even though I don't think Dre Wright did anything wrong really, and it was just never really going to get overturned. It annoyed me because you see Gassama kicking his leg out. So he doesn't even just let it get tangled. He puts his leg out to get caught. And that was a bit that changed it for me in terms of, like, yeah, that's very obviously him trying to make that contact happen. I think the contact that Jay Wright is maybe their hips come together ever so slightly. But yeah, I was quite annoyed with that. And just in Ibrox, where you've already given a red card, it's just never gonna get turned over, is it?
No, I certainly wouldn't have thought so. So Rangers. So you wanted to. There's a few things a few concerns I've got about this style of play and how it's going to work domestically. We thought it'd make Rangers better. Not sure about that. We'll get to that in a second. You wanted to talk about just the starting 11 in general.
Yeah, I was surprised that obviously he made no changes whatsoever. He's obviously wanting to try and build some sort of momentum, and he's just had a absolutely brilliant result in Europe. But just, it's so easy for Rangers to make changes and to bring fresh energy into the team. He'd already made a point as well against certain players, so he wasn't necessarily even playing like his best team in that European game. It's like it bought him a situation where I thought that, well, I could maybe make 2 or 3 to keep them fresh, even if it's not really for Dundee, it's really for the Pilsen game next week. Because as you saw with this Rangers team, that Pilsen team looked awful, and I can't see them being able to turn it over. But this Rangers team looks like it'll give up chances. Against Panathinaikos, they gave up a chance every 7 minutes. It felt like over three of the halves of the 4 halves over that game. And then today, and then against Dundee, a team who the week before at home had 1 shot on target from 2 shots, like looked like they were going to score any time they lofted the ball into the box. So that's a problem that they have. So there would be an issue that if Pilsen did score early, that you could imagine that team looking like it could get panicked. So I just thought you would take the easy decision to bring in someone like Raskin again and just let him go, because he's going to want to prove a point. He's not going to be happy about going on the bench. He's the best player at the club, and he's probably got eyes on a move quite to like a much bigger level. So this isn't an ideal situation for him to go into where he starts not even playing for Rangers. It will drop his value, if you like, in terms of the level of team that he can end up going to. So just think, put him in, and he'll just Dundee wouldn't get a second on the ball in that environment. And you're already going to be pressing them high up the pitch. So you get the sort of the Raskin that goes box to box, which we've seen since Barry Ferguson's time. Just thought it was just a really obvious thing to do. But instead, he just kind of went with the same old. But again, it's really easy in hindsight to say these things. But I did say prior to the game, it's just an easy win for Rangers that they can just rotate and rest people when you're at home to Dundee. But that was before the game. They did drop points in the fucking game, so what do I know?
Yeah, and with the style of play, it was quite until it really started to get interesting in the second half, it was quite a boring game, because it was just like constant Rangers camping in Dundee's half, but the ball getting played around loads, the centre halves touching the ball so many times, playing it between each other, this kind of Martin style, which is like kind of suffocate them with possession, keep the ball high up the park, press them high up the park, keep them away from our goal, just constant pressure, so they'll eventually relent and they'll give something up. But to do that, you need to, first of all, for clubs like Dundee, anybody in the Scottish top flight is kind of, like, other than Celtic, is well versed to go to Ibrox and camp it out and know what you're going to have to do. So in order to break that down, you have to do things. You have to take chances on the ball. You have to move the ball a lot quicker than Rangers
Joe
in this
Rothwell.
one. There was so much in this game of they just never, like, the lack of urgency was quite galling, and it often felt like, right, get the ball to Ant-Man, get the ball to Gassama, and they could do something for us. And I mean, those are talented wingers, so that is their kind of job description. But you saw every time they got the ball, they were asked to like beat not like one but like 2 players in order to make that happen, in order to break down and then collapse the Dundee defence and then get them out of their shape, get them out of their discipline, try to make chaos happen. That just wasn't really happening at all, because it was just too much for these guys to do, because it was just moved too slowly into the advanced areas. And once they were there, there was 11 Dundee players between whoever had the ball and the goal.
And then you see the difference between Lyle Cameron playing in the midweek when there's space and the game's being played at like a high octane and the atmosphere is really good and carrying Rangers on. But this one, he's in a position where, like you're saying, he should be going over Gassama and being the guy who he bounces the ball off to do the really fast 1-2s. But Cameron's not quite at that level yet. When, again, like you're saying, when it's that deep a defence in that, and when you're bouncing the ball off, it isn't a simple 1-2. You need to be absolutely perfect in the pace and everything that ball moves. So again, that it didn't suit players that were playing in that midfield. So Diamandi was really slow, and Diamandi's a player that I'm really fond of. I think he's really, really brilliant. He was wanting about 15 touches of the ball every time that the ball came over to him, which just, again, helped Dundee. And it just leads me back to like Raskin in that midfield speeds everything up. Speeds everything up with his aggression, speeds everything up with his talent, it speeds everything up with his off the ball movement, because he likes to run into the box. It just the game with and it was And I always think it's funny when a manager tries to make a point, right? You know, and the second it started to go wrong for Rangers, he's straight to Raskin. Yeah, so the point's kind of been diluted, mate, as the second it starts going wrong, that you couldn't be quicker to go and get the best player again on the park. And I think when you try and elongate these points into a second game, it starts there. And when it's this early, you start getting yourself swamped in with these sort of like these mind games that you're trying to play with your team when he kind of already had done it. He'd kind of got the win off there. He'd won that. He'd made a point. The fans are probably impressed at the bravery. And then you sort of let it bleed into another game to keep on making these points. You just end up looking daft eventually. You will get caught out.
And Dessers as well.
Oh, the one with the version we like. Bring him back.
Well, I don't even know if this is the version we like. Because the version we like is a guy that misses loads of chances. He didn't even really have any chances in this one. He was just rubbish. Like, and this is a problem they have as well, obviously, because if they're going to do this kind of methodical build up, if they're going to have this game plan, what they really need is they need a centre forward who they can just pop the ball into, and he can either create something for the others or do something himself. Now, Dessers is somebody that, I mean, it's funny, Dessers didn't really fit into Rangers' style last season, but he scored a lot of goals because he kind of thrives in the chaos, Dessers. But where Rangers struggled last year is that they were quite a direct team and they would go direct to Dessers, and he's a penalty box player. He's not really anything else. Like, he's a big guy, but his touch isn't that good. He can do little things in terms of like kind of flicks and stuff around the corner, but he's not brilliant at holding it up. He's not brilliant at being a target man number 9. And so that was what was being asked of him last season. But because Rangers were going quite quick, quite direct, like attacking space and behind their opponent, Dessers thrives in that situation. So it was kind of like, it was hit and miss, which is a very kind of accurate way of summing up Cyril Dessers in general. But in this system, like what he was being asked to do in this game, there wasn't that much space for him to go in behind to try and get on the end of it like a through ball or whatever. There wasn't many opportunities. There wasn't much space for him to do that. And he was being asked to do a lot with his back to goal, and he was so bad. Like, the ball just continually kept bouncing off him. He's better than that. He's better than that performance. But it does show you that the kind of, especially in a game like this, what they really needed was a forward to just like cut a ball through the lines, just play it into the feet of the forward. That'll get the defence to panic a bit. I'll get a couple of guys to come over.
Yep.
In the box, so that you can play a pass, and then that gets somebody else in with a good opportunity. That just never happened. That just never happened in this game, and it was what they badly needed.
And they couldn't get to the byline either to get any of the cutbacks. For which Dessers is quite good when. And the one time they did, he tried to pass it off when the ball got cut back to him. He tried to lay it off to someone coming out of the box for a shot, rather than doing what you see him quite do a lot when he just sort of curls it into the corner from a cutback. So yeah, his decision making was also poor. On top of like the lack of opportunities that that his movement and the style brought him, and his touch is awful. So yeah, just and then you're about 10 yards offside for the goal, and that lovely picture of the fan on the pitch jumping on him, celebrating. You were pretty like when I first saw it, I was like, that might be offside. Then you only need to see one replay, and I was still expecting it to take absolutely ages on the VAR, but thankfully it didn't. They were like, that is clear as day offside. So let's get everyone calming down in here.
Right, so let's move to our next game. Livingston 3, Falkirk 1. The Lions continuing there to have Falkirk's number. It was the same in the Championship last season. It's the same in their first game in the Scottish top flight. And I think for this one, we'll start with the losers. I think they're the most interesting thing out of this game. Falkirk, who, like the opening period to this game, Falkirk were the better team, easily the better team, and had opportunities to go in front. They didn't do that. Scott Pittman ends up in the scoring. Lewis Smith scores a belted goal right on the stroke of half time to make it 2-0. And Livingston could have been 3-0 ahead. Robbie Muirhead misses a penalty. Falkirk get back in it with Ross McKeever. It was after Falkirk had their own penalty given, but it was later called to be outside the penalty area. I wasn't sure about that decision either. That felt like Adams went down a bit easy after just feeling a kind of wee nudge from Macaulay Tate. It was one of those kind of borderline ones. But anyway, free kick on the edge of the box. They swing it in. McKeever scores. Falkirk don't manage to really create any kind of more opportunities though, and it's Jeremy Bakila off the bench with an 88th minute goal to make sure Livingston get all 3 points. You just, Already, it's what we said at the start of the season, and you're already worrying for Falkirk. And something we talked about their, are doubting some of their players' abilities to make the step up. And there's certainly some around the wider squad where you would have those doubts. I think for me, in terms of going forward, they've actually they've looked a bit better than I thought they would. I thought that Miller and Ross have looked quite lively in both games. McKeever, I think, played well in this one. He played well when he was off the bench against Dundee United. Dylan Tate was excellent against Dundee United. Brad Spencer, as well, he's been on the ball, he's looked pretty good. The fullbacks have been getting forward, but what's been an issue for Falkirk so far is their defence. And that's something we maybe didn't focus on a lot when we done the previews, is that looking at we mentioned it a bit because we talked about like Conal Donaldson being out and him coming back and him never really doing it at Premiership level before. And if he's like one of your two best centre-halves, what does that say about you? In order to kind of bridge the gap between him coming back, they've brought in Lewis Nielsen on loan from Hearts. Yeah, Lewis Nielsen, as I said last week, he's never looked like he's never for any sustained period looked like a Scottish Premiership centre-half in terms of he's good on that. He's composed on the ball, he's a big guy, he's got all the tools, but he's just not strong enough defensively. Like, just the pure thing of being a defender and clearing your lines and not making mistakes.
His concentration's not good as well. Whenever he goes wandering, because Lewis Nielsen thinks he's a player as well. He thinks he's a ball playing centre half, and I don't mean that in the kind of uppity way that I did present that there. But that's part of his game, and he does like to go for a wander sometimes. And right now with his Falkirk team, like you're saying, that's maybe not what you're looking for, and they just need to go into the transfer market. It just has to be accepted that you have to improve the team. You're not going to do back to back to back. You're not going to the Scottish top flight. So what would be the equivalent be? You go League One, Championship, then top six, right? That would be I would call that the triple, if you know what I mean. Because obviously you're never going to win the league. But you'd call that sort of like the back to back to back in terms of what's possible in a Scottish football sphere. It's just not going to happen at this level. As we said so many times during that preview podcast, and I know people got annoyed with it, and I get being annoyed because you just watched your team sort of like prove everyone wrong twice in a row, and the team being so easy on the eye and so good. But the problems were always obvious in terms of when they were playing the better teams, they struggled to play in that style, and people get their number. Livingston, for example, the better team in the Championship, had their number. So if they can continue to have their number, what's everyone else going to do in the Premiership once they get sort of like half an hour to watch and to work out how to hit on their weaknesses? And they do have weaknesses, and the teams in this league, they'll just go for them. And there's not a lot of idealistic management in the Scottish top flight. People will quite happily go, you know what we'll do? We'll just play on whatever they are. We will just let them have the ball. They'll not be able to break it down. People done it with Aberdeen last year, and I mentioned that at the time. And that was a team that spent loads. Once they got worked to after 10 games, they couldn't win again. They couldn't win a match again because everyone, including Celtic, were willing to play off their weaknesses. And they'll do the same to Falkirk. And I kind of want them just to sign 2 or 3 players, because McGlynn's going to have them playing this good football. As you said, they started really well in this game, and against Dundee United, they scored a couple of really nice goals, and they looked like they were sticking to their guns in terms of their style. So if they add maybe a little bit of brawn and maybe another striker, because with Graham, I just think you only see him being a squad striker off the bench, especially after that start last week when he looked really hopeless, which I'm really sad about because I really wanted Graham to sort of come up and just keep on doing it. But that's looking like that would be a really, really risky tactic to go by. Just add those little bits and just calm down with the loyalty. You don't need to give Sean Mackey a new deal. You are allowed to sign a new left back. It isn't. You're not shafting someone when you're doing this, and the loyalty is just going to kill them, and it's just going to kill it. But just 2 or 3 players keep playing the same way, and then if they finish 9th playing sort of nice football, they'll get so much plaudits, and it's what I'd prefer it. It'd be good for someone to prove that it is possible, but it's not going to happen if they just ignore signing new players. Sorry.
Yeah, they do, and it's not just the back line, it's also the guys in front of the back line, like Tate and Spencer, good on the ball. Mm-hmm. That's not in doubt. Are they good enough defensively that they can give like sufficient cover to this defence? Because you saw it with the first goal. Like, it's Nielsen that gives the ball away, But also as well, Spencer's not great. Like, he's beside Pittman in the penalty box, and he just lets his concentration go for a second, lets Pittman just wander off him slightly, and he's caught on his heels when that cross from Muirhead comes in. And if he could have easily just been beside him and been there to clear that ball. And it was something I did wonder about the United game as well, where they're just constantly, United were managing to drive through the centre of the Falkirk team. And I was like, that's not great. You need to, if your defenders aren't the strongest part of your side, then you're going to need guys in front of them at this level to protect them. And I don't think they're getting that either.
And we've also got fullbacks like Adams, they're one of your main outlets for getting forward.
Adams and McCann both like to bomb
forward, yeah. So then it's like, well, someone has to stop the teams. Like, someone is going to have to do. These other teams are actually better than you. So there just needs to be this type of result could be brilliant for Falkirk, because what we speculated on that podcast is that they might have a good start, home Dundee United who might not be as cohesive a unit yet as you would maybe expect later on. Then Livingston, a team that is,
I would give them a draw for this one,
and then maybe playing Hibs off the back of a European game. Whatever that, well, maybe you could end up with 7 points there or 6 points there. This might be better. Is that just we might really need to just accept that we need to bolster this squad and make them better.
The flip side to that though is it a case that like money is quite tight? Like they've maybe overspent over the last couple of seasons to get Falkirk back to where the club feel. Well, the club kind of realistically belongs in terms of size of club. It's very much a top end.
Sold, yeah.
Aye, top end championship at the very most, and probably you would say lower end Scottish Premiership in terms of size of Falkirk. So maybe they've overspent. I'm just speculating here. I don't know anything, but maybe they've overspent, and this is they just kind of have to go with these guys again. And because a lot of them are already under contract and they can't really do anything about that, maybe that's what's hamstrung them a bit. Because if that's the case, this is actually a terrible result for them, I would say, because you don't want the confidence to be so affected that it, like, this is what I spoke about last week. You don't want confidence to be ruined, because then it'll really affect their game going forward. Because they need players to stay confident, to stay happy in how they're playing. Because
you need to ride a crest of a wave if you're going to do this. Yeah.
But the guys need to be able to do things on the ball, to take chances, to be brave. And if you're losing all the week, it's very hard to do that. So losing to Livingston, you've got to think that the players going to be thinking like, Christ, like this is tough.
Nah.
Like this must be the team. I know it's an away game, so it's not quite the easiest match you would have. But this is like on paper. Like Livingston and Dundee are looking at being your easiest opponents. And I mean, you could say that we're unlucky in this one, because they did start the better side. And if they get a goal, then you never know, this could turn out completely differently. And I think there was a clear game plan in this one, and that the reason why they were so on top so early is that they were showing a lot of intensity, a lot of energy. Like they were really getting in Livingston's face high up the park. They were moving the ball really quickly. I think they caught Livingston a bit cold. I think Livingston weren't expecting Falkirk to be quite so up for it from the off. But it was always an intensity and a speed of play that I think they were going to... I mean, it was always going to kind of... Their energy was going to get sapped, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And
you don't score early when you play like that, you're actually in trouble.
Aye. Yeah. They needed to score within that period. And then I think if they did, then they would, maybe just keep possession a bit more, try to frustrate Livingston as they're getting back in the game. Then you got more space to hit in the counter-attack, spaces in behind, etc., etc. So I think it was a decent enough game plan, but it's once they didn't score and it kind of fell apart. And as soon as Livingston got in front, they were just in control of the match from that point forward, with the exception that all game long, Livingston were not good at set pieces, which is surprising, because you would think that Livingston would be good at that. Like that's kind of these bread and butter things is a staple of Martindale's teams. But for whatever reason, in this game, Falkirk had numerous chances, including the goal, which all came from a set piece. As for Livingston themselves, to me, it's just kind of wanted to focus on a couple of players. Also, one other thing to mention for this game is a bit weird. They had 3 separate injuries in the first half, with players having to go off, which is not something you see every day. But for the Livingston players who remained on the park, they had a couple of injuries themselves. Danny Wilson, one of them, and they better hope that's not anything kind of long term. But I wanted to signal out Lewis Smith. He comes off the bench against Kelly. He makes the running cross for the equaliser. And then in this one, the shot that he had, the brilliant shot in the top corner. Not just that, though. He actually originally helps win the ball back for Falkirk with some nice defensive play. Sorry, for Livingston with some nice defensive play, and then gets it back to the keeper, and then they build up the park, and then he gets the ball and pings it in the far corner. And Lewis Smith, let me see, how old is he now? Because he seems like he's been around for a while, but he's probably 25 now. So Lewis Smith, there's somebody we talked up a little bit as years went past. He seemed like he was going to be the next player off the Hamilton youth conveyor belt when he first burst into the team. And he looked good at the Scottish Premiership level. And then he didn't quite kick on, but you're thinking once... I mean, the season where Hamilton got relegated, he had a hamstring injury for a lot of the season, so he missed a bit of it. But you're thinking, right, they'll go down. Smith will be a huge player for them in the lower leagues, and he'll be the kind of the talismanic figure as they're looking to get back up at Accies. And it never happened. And even when they went down to League One, he was still like a little bit of a kind of in and out of the team. Like he just seemed to have lost his mojo a little bit. Then Livingston pick him up, and he's still kind of same. He added a bit of something to Livingston last season, but he was still not quite a first choice guarantee every week. Kind of used as a bit of rotation, started some games off the bench and others. A bit of a bright spark, but you're thinking, right, is he just gone as a top Scottish Premiership player? And he might be, because it's only 2 games. But he showed a lot of talent when he was younger. He showed a lot of promise. And who knows? Maybe this time, Martin is the king of the reclamation project. Maybe this is another one where Smith gets back to the player. Probably not the player we hoped he would be, because when he first came through Accies, you're thinking, if he continues to progress and get better season upon season, you're actually looking at somebody that might play for Scotland. That's obviously not going to happen. But can he be like a good, reliable threat in the Scottish top flight? And so far he has been through 2 games, but obviously there's a long way to go.
Yeah, but the beauty of I know it's only 2 games, but the beauty of it is that the 2 things were pure talent. If you understand what I mean, it's like it's really skillful, hard running, picking the ball, picking the cross out. Last week, it was all very deliberate as well. It wasn't just like hashing it across. And then the game yesterday, curling it in the top corner like that. It's not just like, oh, he scored a scrappy goal from a cutback where he's rolled it in the corner. And it's like things where you're like sitting up and taking notice. The guy's sort of taking games by the scruff of the neck and making genuine high quality impact on it. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see. And like you say, it's Martindale's MO, so it could well just be the case. But I was delighted to see the big man come off the bench. Bokila just read his career, read his Wikipedia, please be good. It's just very simple. It was as simple as that. Saw him, saw his background, saw his international team, signed in for Livingston, please. And the goals class just absolutely rifled in the far corner to calm it down. So hopefully as I said, just 6 or 7 goals off the bench, mate. More like that, and everyone will be delighted.
Another player I wanted to single out was Scott Pittman, who was excellent in this game and has had an excellent start to the season. Yes. And he was somebody that even Livingston fans thought, like 2 years ago when they went down, they still wanted to keep him because they knew he'd be good in the Championship again, going down a level. But as a Scottish Premiership player, he looked done in that last Livingston season. He didn't have a good campaign. And I wonder as well, Livingston are very much more on the front foot this season than were in that season two years ago, as I've stated the reason why earlier. And I wonder if that's helping Pittman as well, because he's not now playing as an attacking midfielder on a team that doesn't attack.
But the gaps are absolutely massive between him and a striker, and there's nobody else coming with him. Because he's a guy who likes to late run into the box, and the late run into the box relies on bodies in the box. Otherwise, he just go, there's just one guy, we'll just pick him up.
Yeah, but he just seems, he even looks a bit like kind of lighter on his feet, and not in terms of the fact that he looks like he's lost weight. He just looks, Scott Pittman, other than the fact he's now got a bald head, has looked exactly the same ever since he came out of the Livingston team. But more the fact he just looks like he's got a bit more energy about him, and that's maybe just enjoying your football a bit more, playing on a team where everybody's got a bit more confidence and everybody's enjoying themselves. And as an attacking player, that's going to help you play your best when you're in that kind of environment. So it's not only you enjoying things, it's the fact that everybody else is as well. And Livy they're playing a bit more football this season, and they're certainly going at teams a bit more than they were the last time round.
The funny thing is, though, you're saying maybe Falkirk have overspent to get back here. Doesn't seem to bother Livingston that their stadium's completely empty. They've gone out and signed Dundee players and signed about 10 players to stay up. So maybe just attitudes are very different on financial prudence. Because, like I said, if you're looking at what you basically named what Falkirk are lacking, and the fact that Livingston just went and got Silla and put him on the fucking bench for this game, and Falkirk would have absolutely, I'd imagine, would with the issues that you said they're having, Silla would have been an absolutely perfect signing for them.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Right, let's move on to our final game of this podcast, and that was the 0-0 draw, which took place at St Mirren's Smisa Stadium between St Mirren and Motherwell. Tony, I didn't watch any of this. I've seen the highlights, but I didn't watch any of the actual game. There was a chance for St Mirren that Maradona would have scored, but St Mirren didn't. that was a bit weird. This is a sports scene at 50 highlights. So yeah, Archie McPherson said that Maradona would have scored Marco Harro's chance.
Kids just sitting there like, what?
And also as well when Mo Silla, Jock Brown called him Mohamed Salah. I was like, wait, what? So I was like, what's going on here? And then I was like, looked at him, who he was talking about. I was like, oh, he's talking about Silla, right? Okay, fine. I was very confused for a second.
So I don't know. I was like before we split up the two. We both knew we were going to watch Rangers games. That was on the telly, and then we split up the other two games. And I was like, oh, I really want to watch Motherwell. I was going on about them in the preview. And then I turned around and see you're watching a sort of 4-goal game that seems really exciting, and I'm watching the 0-0 one, and it was my shout. But I still, like you said at the start, there's still loads to talk about because it's so early. So a 0-0 game is still really intriguing at this stage of the season because you are just trying to work out how teams play. We saw St Mirren brought in Keanu Bacchus after signing him back from Mansfield, which I thought was quite cool. I quite liked the way he spoke. Bacchus, it was like, I loved my time here. I just really, really wanted to. It sounded like something he might have even instigated in terms of like, in the background. Like I would happily go back there because he certainly wasn't a failure down south. Mansfield, he played 39 games last season. I think he scored 7 goals and had like 6 assists, which is better than the season he had. Because certainly the latter time that Bacchus had here, Bacchus went off the boil, to be frank, in there. And Robinson came in with big licks. That the signing of Bacchus meant that St Mirren had the second best midfield in the entire league. Well, they got absolutely dominated by the brand new Motherwell midfield that put together with Fidinga, Watt, and Slattery. And Motherwell, you would be tearing your hair out as a fan. You'd be in that middle ground where you're really a wee bit excited because you can see that the managers obviously had a massive impact on the training pitch. The style is good, but they're not overplaying. That was something I was keeping an eye on. That is like, is this just going to be one of these? Is this Nick Montgomery's Hibs? Is essentially what's going on in my head. Is this just going to be passive for passive sake? And everyone goes like, we'll just have it. We'll press you when we get into the box and we'll score a few goals over that. But it really wasn't like that. They played good football, but it was certainly with purpose. And they got into the last third really regularly. And like for a non-Old Firm team, I know St Mirren and Robinson are sort of famed for allowing you to have the ball, but there's no way their game plans that Motherwell gets 70% of the ball in the first half. And those three in there, it really, really worked tidily. Fidinga was more, from what I read before it, a lot of the fans, after watching the League Cup, thought he was going to be more of an attacking midfielder, but he looked he was up for the scrap. He certainly liked to tackle. He won the ball back a lot, but he had quality on the ball for passing. And like I thought when I was talking the preview for what I'd read about Motherwell in pre-season and in the League Cup, Slattery's going to be massive. Slattery didn't have like an incredible game, but you could just see, how important a player's going to be because he's playing that attacking midfield role. That you need someone for the way that Motherwell want to play watching this. You need someone to be really fit in that role because they need to be able to say drop in to make the midfield triangle so they keep the ball because they're trying to pop the ball off and they're trying to pass the ball in triangles up the pitch. And then you need to be really, really quickly into the proper number 10 role, try to get into the box. So that player needs to have everything. And then on top of that, you're the main presser. He's the guy that seemed to be the one who'd run out wide to press the fullbacks or the wing-backs that St Mirren had it. So you can see that Slattery's obviously been earmarked by the new manager, Askew, he's basically giving him a huge role. Like you're going to do lots and lots of me. And that midfield, I watched that and I'm really excited. But they lacked a striker, Motherwell. It was really quite obvious. And that wasn't me, and that's not me having a go at Said or Maswinishi, who I thought all worked really hard. I thought all caused problems, were quite aggressive in their pressing, won quite a lot of tackles, and looked like they gave them a hard time, but there's just no killer instinct in there. There was no one that they could play off. And it meant that every time Motherwell were getting the ball round that St Mirren box, they were trying to slide passes through for them. Or the other option that they went for was getting the ball out to Longello and him smashing the ball at the pitch, which was a very, very, very regular part of the game. And you know, at the first I'm like that, oh God, he's very willing, this Longello. He's always available. I'm like, oh, I'm quite impressed. And I saw he scored the goal against Rangers. And I'm like, are they just allowing him to have the ball? Because
if he can't cross the ball, he's going to be available all season.
Yeah, because he kept on doing it. And again, he didn't have, obviously he's got basically 3 wingers to aim at in the box. And even though side's maybe a bit bigger, they went with Maswinishi normally, I would say, as the number 9, mainly in this game. But from our perspective, as I said, it's just, you've went to like one of the better teams in the league and you've really outplayed them for about 70 minutes without really hurting them. So that it's like it's bittersweet. And it shows that there's been tons of progress made, but you need to, cause Stam wasn't fit enough to play the game and he didn't really look particularly fit when he came on, that I would be, if a Motherwell, and if there's any more money left in the coffers, just a striker, man. And they can, all they need to be able to do is, like I was talking about with Wesley before, is someone they can play off and someone who wants to be a bit of a nuisance in the box. I don't think we need, I mean, obviously if you get a good one, do that. But if you can't, then you just, it's quite a simple style of striker that you'll get fucking bumbling about those the English National League, who could come up and do the job up here. And lastly, before I move on to St Mirren, I was really quite impressed with how well Motherwell defended, considering that certainly wasn't a feature of their team last season. They conceded quite a lot of goals last season, Motherwell, but with this one they had to line up with Liam Gordon being out, and obviously with them having actually quite a large injury list in general. Motherwell, like they've got 8 or
obviously,
yeah, of course, 8 or 9 players out. If you didn't have that, they could get rid of 5 of those players and sign a good striker, and then everything would be great. But to be lining up with essentially 4 fullbacks, and I know you can say O'Donnell and McGinn have played centre half fairly regularly over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, but they're the back threes that they play on the side of a back three, which is hugely different than playing as a pair in a strike force going up against like Mandron, and the way that St Mirren style of play, where your centre halves are always going to be asked tons of questions, and they stood up to it really well, and they're being asked to pass the ball out, so it was like a huge ask for those 2 players at their age, and especially O'Donnell with quite a lot of mixed form, and McGinn coming back from a pretty serious injury for last season. I was really impressed with, again, what was being asked of them, which is a lot more than really what should be getting asked of them, possibly. And they both done it really, really well. But I suppose that only can lead you on to that first half from St Mirren is like the worst you'll see St Mirren play. They were totally dominated. They didn't look at it, which is just such a strange thing. I was like, when's someone going to kick someone? I mean, come on. they're not doing anything. Gogic, as you can expect, Gogic was the first to get pissed off. And you can see him getting frustrated, pointing the finger a lot, and he started making fouls. And then after midway through the first half, it started clocking up, and they got to like 9 or 10 fouls inside the first half, and just giving away free kicks. But like I said, Motherwell couldn't fucking cross the ball for the whole game, so none of this actually mattered. But it was just a matter of time. Phillips was so quiet. O'Hara had a head, like a good chance, maybe in the very, very first minute of the game. And that was it. And you could see him getting frustrated. So it was quite unique seeing this sort of St Mirren team under Robinson really sort of like screaming at each other, not having their own way. I thought Richardson was really poor out of the right-hand side. And I was surprised to see him playing. Sabali, I expected to see him play because I watched the second half of the of the Celtic game last week, and I was really impressed with his ability to get up and down, and his recovery pace was really good. So
I was surprised that Dick King didn't start either.
Exactly. I mean, I was a bit surprised at a couple of because I was like, well, defensively they were excellent against Celtic. They went to the best team and they really quite nullified them. Nullified them as much as you're going to nullify Celtic at Parkhead, if you like. So I was a bit surprised that Idowu was non-existent, could not get the game. I was quite excited to watch him because I know that he's been playing in that second forward position, and he seems to be getting more responsibility this season after the sales that St Mirren have made and the players that have left. He seems to be they seem to have a bit of expectation with him. He could not get into it whatsoever. So they were really poor, and it's the start of the second half. It was just a case of how many players are they going to bring on. I wouldn't be surprised if there'd been 3, but they went for 2, and they brought on Sawali and they brought on Mooney. Mooney gave them sort of just more options in the box because they started to go to let's just get the ball wide and let's start just asking bloody questions at some point of this Motherwell team. He had one decent chance. And he was causing a bit more bother without being much of a player that was standing out to you at all.
I've said some Mirren fans say that they need another type of forward because the dude was not really a forward. He's like somebody. I think he played his best last season in it's one of the number 10s in a 3-4-3, and they're missing Olasanya. I think it's fair to say at this point in the season they need that small kind of quicker striker and somebody that gives them a bit different. Mooney, I mean, I thought he actually looked quite lively off the bench against Celtic last week, and it is interesting that he came off before Ayunga came off in this one. But but interesting. Maybe he's actually capable of making that step up and progressing and being the Olasanya type. But like I say, I've seen some Mirren fans say that's the kind of player they should be focusing on in the transfer market between now and the window closing.
They're absolutely lacking. I think we spoke about this at the time. It's like they haven't massively weakened, but they're definitely weaker than the start of last season. I think me and you were talking about that in the preview, but it doesn't worry you because you know that even today, even in a game where they played badly they're still able to rack up a point. They don't get embarrassed at Parkhead, and there's still loads of time that I imagine, and they've got Imagine that's in such a stable position there that you imagine he can push for an extra player, if you understand what I mean. Even if it's slightly stretching the budget, you would imagine they'll do it for him because of his standing at the club. They created one or two. I mean, the goalkeeper Ward at Motherwell, who was really good with the ball at his feet, he did help them get started. I could see exactly what the manager would want from him and why he would be playing in front of Oxford. I could see it there. He did have one pass that he gave straight to Motherwell to create to St Mirren to create their very first chance of the game, but they managed to get away with that. And he did make one brilliant save, I think, from Mandron from a header that from across the way in, but outside of that, it was like an interesting game tactically. It was interesting to see how these teams are developing, but that interesting when it hits around February will become shite when there's no chances.
Right, Tony, I think that'll do us. Thank you very much for joining me. I need to get off because I need to watch Aberdeen against Celtic to prepare for tomorrow's podcast.
Yes, good man. I'm going to watch a bit of that, and then suppose I'll go to Easter Road and see what the High Bees can dish up once again. Now that we're the greatest team on planet Earth, so.
Right, thank you, Tony, and thank you to everybody for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, cheers.